Cash is always king in business, in recessionary times for sure. The worst case scenario coming into a recession is, even for a high growth company, for them to be burning a tremendous amount of capital and then not have an opportunity to raise capital in front of them. If you're well prepared and you're well capitalized, now is the time to double down. Like in 2008, 2009, we were that $10 million business. We just raised like $3 million of venture capital because we had a good sound structure to our business. Our competitors couldn't raise capital. We outcompeted them just because we had capital. We had a longer runway. We could take some risks on some new product development, on some new customer distribution. And after kind of 2 years of the recession, we were literally years ahead of our competitors, and there was no chance for them to catch up. Doubling down in the recessionary time was the game changer.
Hello and welcome to DTC Podcast. I'm Eric Dick. Today I'm going deep with CPG legend Mike Fata, a man with 3 successful 9-figure exits, including the $419 million sale of his company Manitoba Harvest in 2019. This conversation flowed like the amber hemp fields as we harvested insights like how a branding change took Mike's company from $10 million to $100 million quickly, the critical importance of telling your story and building in public in the CPG game in 2022 and beyond, the who, not how guide to growing your team, and the biggest mistakes Mike sees in people's hiring processes. Hope you enjoy. On with the show. Are you ready to grow your audience and revenue? Sendinblue is a multi-channel marketing platform that empowers businesses to create stronger customer relationships. Create personalized emails, captivating SMS campaigns, chat, custom landing pages, quick sign-up forms, automated workflows, and more instantly. Curious to learn more? Sign up today at sendinblue.com/DTC and enter promo code DTC to get 1 month free on a premium plan. Do it all with Sendinblue. Mike, it's great to have you on. Can you just give people a little bit of your hero's journey in the space? I think probably a lot of people know you, but it'd be great for those who don't to hear a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. I grew up poor with a single mom and dropped out of school when I was 13, so started working pretty young, but found my passion for health after I lost 100 pounds when I was a teenager and got into the hemp food business. And we were one of the first companies really to commercialize hemp foods, and over 20 years grew that business from $0 to $100 million. And then we sold it a couple times, but the last time in 2019 for a $400 million transaction. And that's kind of the big part of my hero's journey, I guess. But life continues on, and now I'm investing, advising, coaching, mentoring, writing a book, a whole bunch of things now. But that's kind of after the business success.
So cool. I'm so curious. Like, I know you're still really in the CPG game, investing, advising, as you say. I've got your midday squares gear on, which is great to see. I'm curious what, like, for you back in when did the ascendance happen? When did the bulk of the years happen? Over what years?
We started Manitoba Harvest in 1998, and it took 5 years to reach our first $1 million in sales, and then another 5 years to hit 10 million. So by 2008, we were doing about 10 million in revenue, and then from 2008 to 2018, we grew $10 million a year, and so it was that was probably the vertical in the J curve. Started in 2008, 2009, right through the recession, which was a testament to what we were really building and the innovation that we really were offering to people.
What were the biggest factors in those hyper growth years starting in 2008? Was it social media? Was it, what was that?
Yeah, a couple things. We did a rebrand. We used to, our flagship product was Hemp Hearts. So hopefully people have eaten Hemp Hearts. It's the soft inner kernel or the heart of the hemp seed. And when we first launched it, we were calling it shelled hemp seeds, which that's what the product is, and then as we went through a branding exercise and was like, oh, Hemp Hearts is just a much better way to describe it. And it's a lot more catchy. So we just finished a full rebranding exercise to Hemp Hearts. And then things just took off. The stores that we were in and online sales just grew, the velocity like 2-3x. And then a lot more mainstream stores decided that they were ready to finally carry the products after 10 years of kind of marketing them. So Costco was a big customer, Walmart, and so we really expanded the distribution. But I think it was all on product positioning, really. And at the same time, like consumers started to wake up to the health benefits of including hemp foods into their diet.
And you had a good solid 10 years of trials and tribulations to be ready for that, right? Like if you were
Yeah,
starting
we
in
were.
2008, there's no way you'd be ready to capitalize the way you did.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always talk about preparedness as an entrepreneur, and we were well prepared. Being 10 years into the business, had just expanded our manufacturing facility by like 5 times capacity, and started growing our team and making venture and had venture capital investment, which into that recession, our competitors that didn't have any money really failed. A lot of them failed, and because we had financing and capital, we could keep growing right through the recession.
What an amazing branding story. I had never heard that before about the hemp hearts industry. I remember when hemp hearts became a thing and I was like, oh, is this a new thing that people are? I remember them at Costco. I was probably your brand. And it's just by repositioning that essential aspect to something way more palatable and interesting and memorable. It just took the market by storm. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, hemp hearts meant a lot of things to people, right? Like heart healthy, or hearts are warming. Like it gave us a tremendous ability to communicate to our consumers in a fun and playful way, and in a lot of different mediums. So, yeah, but and same product inside, and just positioning different on the outside.
So did you coin that? Did your company coin hemp hearts?
We actually, there was a competitor that did, but didn't trademark, didn't trademark it, and so we declared that hemp hearts were just a new way to say shelled hemp seed, so it became a commodity from a trademark standpoint. And then we created the hemp heart brand mark, which was a double overlapping heart, and because we had the distribution with 16,000 retail store partners, we beat out the competition because we already had that Manitoba Harvest brand established. And, but it was, I watched the competitor kind of flounder and not trademark it, and I was like, oh, we got to jump all over this.
Yeah, man, super interesting. What my question is like after living through those hyper growth years and now working with brands that are trying to do this, tell the same story 10 years later, what are some of the biggest things that have changed in the CPG environment from your perspective?
Oh, a tremendous amount. When we started the business, we were getting the fax was still popular, right? The internet was just starting out. No social media. Obviously, nowadays, like it's all about social media, and storytelling is the best way to grow your brand. Like we still for food products, I believe it's important being in the food space you got to get your product into people's mouths. So like sampling and demoing and doing shows and events where you can actually demo and sample product to people is important. But being able to communicate even how good your product tastes, but for sure, like why you're in the business, and that storytelling aspect, that's just a fundamental now. And it wasn't, it was big advertising, for the first 15 years that I was in business was the way it was done. And now that you could shoot all your marketing and on your iPhone and just tell a great story, and you're gonna and including personal branding into that story, and that's the way to do it nowadays.
Yeah, I see it. It's really a big melting pot for the brands that do it best. Like what I find most interesting as someone who's building a marketing education company, this marketing media company, I love the fact that so many consumers are interested in the business stories of the people who create these products. And it sort of, to me, signals a bit of a sea change of people just becoming more interested in this kind of enterprise. So when I see brand owners like Midday Squares out there, doing their mini documentaries about getting sued by Hershey's or whatever, and how important that personal business brand also can be used also towards the consumer. I guess there's two sides of it. There's the passion about your product and here's why I made this product, but there is that other business side story as well, which I think people are drawn to.
Yeah, I've seen it coming, and that's why when I met the MDS crew, besides a great product and great people, I could see that the world was going to wake up to their type of marketing, and so I've been singing the gospel on that one for the last couple of years before a lot of people woke up and saw what MDS is going to do. But that goes back to like think about over the last decade. Reality TV shows are what dominated media. Like people want to see other people and learn from other people and hear the stories, the good, the bad, like how things are made, or how it's built, all those shows is what really grabs people's attention. They want to be behind the scenes, and I think being authentic with that and being open as an entrepreneur to share really sets you up for success.
I look at the Marshmallow Co. that I had on the podcast at a small storefront marshmallow business. He started doing visual ASMR in his factories about how this product was made, what it looks like when you stretch it out with a whole tray of marshmallows, when you put it in a microwave or whatever. And there are hundreds of millions of views in now, and they've 1,000x their business from their storefront. They're shipping internationally. And so that opportunity across all platforms to storytell across like LinkedIn, across TikTok, it can be overwhelming, I imagine, for businesses to think about how they're actually going to tell this story effectively while still building their business.
I think there's a couple things. One, a lot of entrepreneurs have a roadblock where they don't believe their story is interesting, and I don't believe that. I think consumers are interested in every story, whether that's like how a plumbing job, how a toilet breaks and gets fixed. You could educate people on that. Like, think about the best salesman. If you're going out to buy a new microwave or a dishwasher or a car, it's all about how they educate you by telling you a story, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs get in their own way by thinking, "Oh, my story is not no one's interested in my story," but from there, there's work to do, right? You have to set yourself up for success. Like, Midday Squares, their first employee was a videographer to capture everything, and so you have to understand the aspects of storytelling and copywriting and be able to shoot and edit. It doesn't need to be fancy though, but you do need to have some of that skill set built into your business.
Yeah, we reference it on the podcast all the time, but just this idea that the brands of the future will also be media companies, in a way, right? And that, so whether it's brands looking to acquire media companies and blogs or create this content themselves, I just feel like it's just a required opportunity that we just need to look at, like as these businesses grow in the next few years.
Yeah, we're living in the attention economy, right? And so you got to get people's attention. If you're a brand, awareness generation for your brand, trial for your brand are key, and the lowest cost way to do that is to produce your own media.
Are things harder now than they were then? Like there's a lot of factors, right? There's the internet is creates better chances for marketing than you had. There's probably way more competition than you face now. How do you view it in terms of like, is it any harder or easier to do it now than when you did it?
For sure, it's harder now. And I give you a couple examples. Like in the product business, if you made a great product and you innovated and you created something brand new, you used to have a year, maybe 2 years of runway before people caught on. Why? Because there wasn't social sharing. There was less data available as well. And so you just fly under the radar and you could kind of grow. Nowadays, you create something that's awesome, and especially as you start sharing about it, like within a month or two, you're going to have competitors already that are copying you, right? Sometimes that copying can elevate the lead brand. It usually does. There's usually like, one or two main horses in the race. But if you're what I call a Me Too product, like the 10th cold brew coffee, or you're in trouble, because there's so much competition nowadays, and you're likely going to be outcompeted.
Yeah. Here's another question too. Do you think, are things democratizing or consolidating or both in the CPG space?
I think it probably depends on the geography and maybe even the category of product. Through recessionary times, which we're going into, I think you're going to see a lot of consolidation or just failure, right? Because that example of like 10 different coconut oil products or 10 different cold brew coffees, there's no space for it in a recession. In a growing time, maybe there is, and there's still investment dollars for those type of businesses. There's still extra shelf space for those type of businesses. But when things get tight, and we're moving into that time, and I think the next several years are going to be tight, reminds me of 2008, 2009 kind of time all over again. You're either going to get consolidated and companies kind of come together is their only way to survive, or a lot of them are going to die.
and they'll need those direct, like if they're relying just kind of on being a Me Too product in the system, I imagine there's still for brands that really have a great connection to an audience through other channels. And, I guess they're no longer a Me Too brand if they have an amazing community, I guess is the way to put it. But I feel like
Right.
brands that
Yeah.
have established that great community, there's still that opportunity to, like, there's more opportunity than ever for decentralization, for you to have your little corner of the audience that you've carved off, right?
Yeah, I think, well, we're living in the omni-channel time, right? So it's not about, am I a direct-to-consumer brand? A lot of direct-to-consumer brands now are realizing, I need some other sales channels, right? Like a brick and mortar might not be so bad, or even companies that are in brick and mortar that are now launching their own site or their own sales so that they can appeal to their target customers. It's that diversification and being able to sell omni-channel, like do well on your own, sell it through Amazon and the resellers, do brick and mortar, maybe starting out locally in your home territory, and then you're a multi-legged stool. It's harder to kick you over for you to fail that way.
Speaking of the recession, so we're not in a recession already, but every person I talk to is feeling it, and expectation recession usually causes recession. So pretty much safe to say we're in a recession here. What's your top advice for your portfolio brands? Like, what are you really emphasizing with your portfolio brands, kind of heading into 2023 and the recession?
Yeah, well, cash is always king in business, but or king or queen, but in recessionary times, for sure, so you can't run out of cash, and your cash runway, your ability to raise capital if you need to, like the worst case scenario coming into a recession is, even for a high growth company, for them to be burning a tremendous amount of capital and then not have an opportunity to raise capital in front of them. They could fail. They could have a great product, have a great business, and fail just for that reason. So I think getting more responsible with your budget and your P&L is the best way to combat that, and then shore up your next kind of round of investment, or make sure that you have a long runway. And when I say long runway, I generally like to think about like 18 to 24 months of runway for high growth brands, and I wouldn't want to be existing in a business with less than that in a recessionary time.
These days, it's expensive to get shoppers to your store, so when they do show up, you want to make the most of each order. Thankfully, there's Aftersell Post-Purchase Upsell, the most popular upsell app on Shopify. With Aftersell, you can create targeted, on-brand post-purchase offers that maximize your AOV. Trusted by over 6,000 merchants, including hundreds of Shopify Plus stores like Brewmate, True Classic Teas, and Good American, Aftersell has generated over $50 million in revenue for their merchants. We've partnered with Aftersell to create a special offer for DTC listeners. Visit aftersell.com/DTC for a 10% off lifetime subscription to Aftersell and white glove support for Plus merchants. On top of that, there's a 30-day free trial, so there's zero risk to installing. That's aftersell.com/DTC. Anything else that you're looking for or really urging people to focus on?
Just focus on the differentiation, because you don't want to be selling a commodity in a recession. Your gross margin and your profitability is really going to suffer. It's going to be challenged a lot more, just because of the economic situation.
It's funny, as someone who's partnered with an agency, we're always promoting content, and there's no shortage of it, of people that will say that spending into recessions is often the way to go. And historically, when you look back, when Kellogg's pulled the reins on certain products, other products took over during these took over mind share. I guess it's totally specific on one's cash position and all these things. But do you see these times also as that opportunity to gain market share against other people that are timid?
100%. Yeah. No, if you're well prepared and you're well capitalized, now is the time to double down. Like in 2008, 2009, we were that $10 million business. We just raised like $3 million of venture capital, because we had a good sound structure to our business. Our competitors couldn't raise capital. We outcompeted them just because we had capital. We had a longer runway. We could take some risks, on some new product development, on some new customer distribution, and we, after kind of 2 years of the recession, we were literally years ahead of our competitors, and there was no chance for them to catch up. When you fast forward then to when Manitoba Harvest was $100 million business, our largest competitor was like in single digit millions, like 5, 6, 7 million, and that doubling down in the recessionary time was the game changer.
Very cool. Do you are you enjoying your post acquisition life more or less than the hustle of building such a big company?
Uh, More for sure. Sometimes I miss having like one brand to wear on my sleeve, but the thing is, and it's been 3 years. So now I have 10 companies in my portfolio. I'm active in half of them as a board member, as an advisor. But, to answer, I'm a recovering entrepreneur. I've operated a business for 20 years. We grew it from zero to 100 million bucks, had a couple hundred team members. It's a lot of stress. And now I don't have that stress. I can't have that stress. I want to have more fun in business. I like being involved in the strategy and the team building, in the growth. But I don't want to. I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket. That feeling of like, oh, if the business struggles, I'm in a struggle spot. I've lived that already, and I feel very fortunate. Some of my mentors that I watch be successful and then transition more into that investor advisor. Coach, mentor, were in their 60s, and I can do that in my 40s. And so I feel like I'm in a spot where hopefully I have another 40, 50 years of being able to do the same thing.
That's awesome. You mentioned team building, and I saw you actually tweeted about this recently. And one of the most influential books before started the D2C business was Who Not How, and so that's something that really, which is this idea of you're trying to figure out how to solve problems. It could be really tough problems. The best solution is often finding someone who's already done it, bring them on board. And I think I look at my team of 15 now, and some of the people we've been able to bring in, hiring has been a huge part of our growth. What are some things that you see people kind of don't pay enough attention to or make mistakes in the hiring process when building their teams?
Yeah, and not having a plan. I just put it out. You're right. I put it out on LinkedIn, because I struggled through it myself. I made wrong hires just because I didn't have a good enough system for hiring. And so clearly identifying what you need in your hire, what position you're hiring for, writing I'll call it an A+ job description, so that you detail all the duties that person is going to be doing, but more so like what is the competencies and experience that they need to be successful in that. And then run a really good interview process. Like have a questionnaire developed so that you know exactly the questions that you're going to ask it. And it's very different than if you're hiring for a vice president of marketing or you're hiring for someone in finance, to test those competencies and experience. Nowadays, especially in a venture stage of growth of businesses, I like bringing people onto the team that have done it before, because I believe, if you've done it before, you're more likely to be able to do it again. And even great people that have done great things, if they haven't done it before, i.e., you're in Canada and you're going into the US market, but you're hiring someone that doesn't have US market experience, more likely going to have a chance to fail. So, make questions so you understand when you're interviewing someone, you could really test that, and then from there, like scorecard it and make sure that as you're putting the hiring documents together and your bonus incentive documents together, they all align to the goals that need to be accomplished. That's your best chance at a success.
One thing that we always do in the hiring process as well is like a project, like whether, if it's a project where we're getting them to do a fair amount of work, we'll offer to pay for it. But like what if we get them to do a project that's sort of with as much information as we've published out there, we're like review some of our stuff and get a sense of handling this project. Basically, we actually look for a completion on that. Did you ever employ that?
Yeah, I think it's smart. It happens a lot in marketing, right? In marketing, when we hire executives, we ask the executive like, hey, what does a 90-day plan look like? If you're the head of sales or head of marketing, what would you do? And you could tell by executives that can put a quarter plan or 90-day plan together, you could see their thought process, but in marketing, like, if you're a video editor, like, hey, show us one of your best video edits, or if it's copywriting or presentation skills, like, yeah, give us an example of that and work through that. I think it's really smart, because you're testing their not only their competency, but their experience as well. That they've done it before, they're going to likely show up and be able to hit the ground running day one when they're in the business.
I think of our recent hire we made on the education side of things and how important just the title of the job posting is. That we originally had like education manager, and so we got 100 teachers, like who taught lots. They were great teachers, but we were really looking for someone to build like our digital education program. And so we changed the name to like Digital Education Program Lead or whatever. And we got an entirely the same job description was exactly the same, but we ended up finding several like really interesting candidates that had specifically that kind of, you just have to be very careful when you name things.
Yeah, well, I'm a stickler, and it's been part of my success on title and compensation that is market grade. So I've where I see entrepreneurs fail, their first employee is their chief something officer, instead of like, if you're hiring a video editor, make it really clear that it's a video editor. If you're hiring a regional sales manager, don't give them the vice president of sales title just because they're employee or team member number 5 or 6 in the business. Got to really understand like what's market for other CPG companies, if that's the space, and then make sure that your title and your position is similar, and then also your pay scale, your compensation structure is similar. That's the best way for longevity and having employee relationships that don't turn into a shit show in the future.
Can you talk a little bit about your investment strategy? I think, the path that you're following is a really desirable one, probably for a lot of people in our audience, to have your exit, to move into the, a place where you can apply your genius, spread your genius across multiple areas and have impact on a lot of businesses in the areas that you want to have, impact on. Can you describe a little bit about what goes into your strategy when it comes to investing?
Yeah. So I've really highly simplified this. It really goes down to a product that I like to consume, and I consume it on a regular basis, and then people that I like to hang out with. So it starts with those two fundamentals, because I believe if you've made a good product and it's good people involved, you have a great potential out of business. The other fundamentals of the business need to be there, like good gross margins and growth opportunity in the business. But I would start with those two. And then just from a scale standpoint, when we were at $100 million business, I was like, I got to get off this ride. It's more of a grind. It's less entrepreneurship at that scale, but get off and go down the escalator to like the $10 million mark. And because I've done that $10 to $100 million journey, I think that's where it makes sense to play. So I'm not an angel investor. I don't invest in startups because I know the challenges of startup, and I don't want to be involved in those challenges. I've been involved for long enough. But if you get to a $10 million business, that's really about the time that it makes sense to invest and build what I'd call $1 million senior management team, and really lay the foundation for that next scale of growth. So all the businesses in my portfolio would be in that, if not 10, at least 5 going to $10 million space, and great product, and then great people that I'll literally have over from my house for dinner and be able to just sit and strategize with, like I want to hang out with them.
And consumables, do you want to stay in consumables and sort of in the CPG consumable space?
I'd say that's my lane. Because of my 100-pound weight loss and my now 25 years into health, and health and wellness is my lifestyle. And so the natural and organic product industry is my lane. I get pitched all the time for all these other kind of investments, and I'm like, that's a great company. That's a great idea. That's a great investment. I just don't know enough about it, or actually care enough about it, that I would want to spend time there, And so going back to like products that I have in my house, if I'm eating a product or using a product on a regular basis, but I know, a lot of the world doesn't know this yet. Like that Midday Squares example again, I met them, I tried the product, I was like, these are phenomenal. I'm never eating any other chocolate again besides Midday Squares. And I believe that the more awareness that the brand generated, other people were going to feel the same way, because the product was just that good. And then obviously Les, Jake, and Nick are just crazy entrepreneurs that I want to hang out with, and strategize with, and play together, never mind, build business. And I think that's what kind of sets it up. So yeah, I generally, all 10 of my companies are in the natural and organic products industry.
And then, are you still in the coaching side of things? I think it's coaching is such an interesting space as well. I think it's probably really underused. It's probably used by people in our industry more than a lot of other industries, but I still probably think it's underused. Can you talk a little bit about that side?
Yeah. Well, I've had kind of COVID stirred all this stuff up. Like I used to love trade shows and go around, and a lot of my relationships were at trade shows, whether it was, that I was mentoring people and I could help them out by, sharing information or introductions and relationships. But kind of COVID I took to social media to kind of fill that trade show gap. And then I started reaching out to all these founders, again, mostly in the natural and organic product space, and then offering my time. Like sometimes it was like a 20 or 30 minute chat, and understand where their business is at. And then tell them what I would do if I was in their situation, or how I could be helpful to them. So there's been like 1,000 conversations I've had, literally in the last 2.5 years, and then I had these requests from people like, "Hey, I'd love to spend more time with you." And I was like, "Well, I have a portfolio of companies that, when I'm invested in a company and I'm on their board, or I'm an advisor to them, there's a certain amount of hours in or days per year that I help those companies in strat planning and the things that advisement to them." People wanted kind of one off, and so yeah, just in the last couple months, I put together a business, 9-figure growth coaching, because I have 3 successful 9-figure exits, and I believe I can offer in a 1-hour time slot, helping entrepreneurs get their growth vision straight, and so I've been doing that, and I have fun with it, and it's easy, so people can go and sign up on my website and book an hour, and the testimonials are already there, because it just, because I've been there before. I'm coming from a place of operations, like I've built the business. I find it's hugely helpful for entrepreneurs that are lacking some of the vision, because they're growing into a territory that's unfamiliar to them.
You mentioned 3 9-figure exits. Are those 2 also within your portfolios, or are those 3 all 3 your own variations within the same?
So 2 at Manitoba Harvest. We sold Manitoba Harvest twice. The first time, $132 million transaction, and then 2019, a $419 million transaction. But then one of my first portfolio investments, Soul Cuisine, which is one of the oldest plant-based protein companies in Canada. I invested and joined the board as chairman of the board in 2018, and within 3 years we tripled that business, and then we sold it in February of this year for a $125 million transaction. And so I feel like, I know what a good successful 9-figure exit, what a company needs to get to and be in our industry to achieve that. And I'm confident that I have, 5 or 6 companies in my portfolio right now that will do that, including Midday Squares. They're already almost there, but growing the business, and growing that team, growing the business, and getting to a place where a strategic acquirer wants to buy that business. I feel that that's part of my expertise.
You've got quite a good hit rate. You're like the Rick Rubin of CPG startups. It sounds like that's just tremendous, man.
A lot of passion. Entrepreneurship is a lifestyle, and I've taken it really seriously. I have fun with it. I'd say nowadays I can't turn that shit off. It's really
recovery,
strat planning, and what's the next step, and who do you need to know, and what's the questions you need to ask, and like what's standing in the way of the business growth. Like that's what my brain is thinking about all the time.
Any predictions for the future of the CPG space, and based on the way that you see things going now, say 10 years in the future?
Yeah, I think there's some trends that are long-standing, especially as it relates to kind of like food and ingestibles. Like need states are just continuing to get stronger. So you'll see trends like low sugar, high protein, things that boost your immune system. That are just gonna continue on. Which means like, what does that look like in a product? A reinvention of a cult classic, right? And we've seen that kind of like with a magic spoon, or even Midday Squares is that example, right? Make a chocolate, a healthier version of a chocolate bar that's made with all these poor ingredients, so it tastes better and it's better for you. I think we're going to see a lot of that, and those are longstanding trends that a decade from now it will still be in the same space.
They have that great David and Goliath story where they went after the peanut butter cup, and their orange was a little too close to Hershey's orange. But I love that sort of like, it's kind of, that us versus them mentality that you see forming with upstart brands and incumbents, but it's probably a bit of an illusion, right? Because everyone's on the same playing field to some extent. I think that's what's very interesting about the way things have evolved, is the playing field, like, it has become possible for incumbents to come in and make those bold challenges, right? That just,
yeah, for sure. I think you'll see it across every category. Some categories have already been done, but like the Pop-Tart's going to be reinvented, and someone's going to do that really well. There's some organic versions, there's some ones already, but like some people want that with lower sugar and higher nutrients and no preservatives and stuff that they can eat every day, like when they're a kid. And just think about kind of that in each different product category, both in food, but also in kind of cosmetics and other products. They're all going to be redone more and more, I believe, for the kind of health of the consumer in mind, and the simplicity of the consumer in mind. We're kind of going backwards, right? We're like making it like it would be made in the old days before kind of big food and big CPG decided to make it all about profit and just make shitty ingredients and not care really about the long-term impact on their consumers' health.
I see that being a big trend. The other, I think of Red Bull and Liquid Death that are literally their CPG products second and their media companies first in a lot of ways, right? Where they're literally selling tinned water and sugar serum with some caffeine in it. And yet they're these, globally attention omnipresent brands because of how well they've created that attention economy with their brands. I think that's going to be a huge trend.
Yeah, for sure. And, Mr. Beast would be another example, creator of like, hey, got such a following that, you sell burgers. Yeah. Okay. Sell chocolate. Yeah. Okay. What else can you sell? You got the attention of the consumer. You make a good product. You're going to be able to sell that out. So there is that. I think the monetization of creators is now happening whether in partnership with CPG companies or, launching CPG companies themselves. I think we're going to see more of that.
Amazing. Mike, thanks for coming on the D2C podcast today. This was a lot of fun. If you're not following Mike on LinkedIn, you should look up the Mike Fata on LinkedIn, where that's probably where you're most active, eh?
Yeah, I like LinkedIn. I'm on there on a daily basis and trying to help share and help people grow.
I think you'll get some good reach out from this. I think we've got a lot of people in this sweet spot of like, couple millions, looking to get to those next plateaus, that would love to probably reach out and chat with you, because I think you're an amazing resource in this space. So thanks for all that you do, and thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.